Greg.
All right, here we go, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. My name is Chris. This is Scott. We are your hosts for the Action Lab. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Sunday so far. Hope you guys are having a fantastic weekend. Scotty, we made it to Sunday. We have a lot to talk about tonight. We have NHL playoffs already kicking off this afternoon. Already have some finals, which there's a couple surprises that I saw in some of those scores. One and two, we're going to be live commentary on some of the unfolding pieces that are going into this NBA playoff puzzle, because there's a lot to happen here. Now, some teams are doing everything they can to win. Some teams are doing some things to lose. But yeah, everyone's trying to get to that point, especially the Lakers. And the Portland game is a super important one, which the Nuggets are kind of, I think, helping Portland out a little bit right now. But we have some playoff stuff to talk about all night tonight. We're going to be hitting you with the Mile High Spotlight. But there's a lot to touch on here. Oh, hold on, wait, I don't hear you. Hold on 1 second here. Let me see what's going on with your audio. Bear with us, folks, while we get this all figured out.
I know what the audio issue is. It was on my end.
Oh, I was gonna.
That was on my end. I just looked down and I'm like, I probably should power this mic on if we want to hear my voice.
There we go. It's one of those things where the Zoom calls where it's like you're on mute. It's like one of the. Yep. You have one of those at least every meeting.
But I don't have the mute thing on my screen to at least see it. I had to look down at the mic and be like, that's not on. So my bad. But I might, from time to time, turn that on and off just so people don't have to listen to me from time to time. I think they'd appreciate that. Just see me rambling on, but not have to know what I'm saying.
I'm sure Mayday might appreciate that.
For sure.
But yeah, what were you saying about these playoffs? There's a lot on both sides here.
Finally, we got some playoffs in the sport. It seems like it's been forever. Obviously, it's been since the NFL playoffs, so in the major sports here. Feels good. Yeah, hockey, we had the first game yesterday, a couple today going on, and, our Avs start here in a little bit on Monday night, so tomorrow night. And then, yeah, NBA's finishing up tonight. A lot of different things going on, like you mentioned, that we'll dive into. Teams maybe wanting to win, some teams maybe not wanting to win, or at least not putting a ton of effort towards it. So it's going to be a lot of fun to break down these NHL playoffs. Listen, I'll be the first to admit, I'm not someone that just tunes in left and right for NHL games throughout the season. But once playoffs come, it's a lot of fun. The action, everything is so meaningful. You get in those overtime games where it's first team to score, and it's pretty wild. So it's a lot of fun to watch, and the NBA playoffs should be really competitive and a lot of fun too. So exciting times.
And new stuff on both ends. So you have the NBA play-in tournament that's new this year. That's something that we'll be keeping an eye on all night tonight, because after tonight, everything's going to be set. And then also on the NHL side, you have just a different way of how they've built out their playoff scenarios as well. Whereas, a second round, matchup between two of the top teams in the whole NHL could happen before they even get to, the semifinals, quarterfinals. I mean, it could be sooner than we think. So, yeah, it's going to be wild. There's a lot to talk about. By the way, if you guys are here, thank you for being here. Thank you for, being a follower if you are. If you're not, just hit that follow button. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And we love every single one of our lab rats that jump in and hit that follow button. But most importantly, we just want you guys to jump in and start chatting with us. We want you to see, what you guys think about some of these playoff scenarios, what you guys think about your favorite team, if your team made it to the playoffs. So hit us in the chat. Let us know how far you think your team will go, who you think your favorites are. We're going to go through a little bit of a pick 'em, or we're going to pick, go game by game, series by series in the NHL, since we already have that set, and we'll kind of pick our teams there. And then from there, we'll, have some fun with NBA once we have that. Maybe we do that on Wednesday once everything's kind of set there too. But
Yep.
hit that follow button. Make sure you're participating. It means a lot to all of us. And we love seeing all the familiar faces. Devin Chat, thanks for popping back in. Interesting to see who wants to lose more, Nuggets or Portland. Nuggets definitely want to lose. Portland definitely wants to win.
Yeah. Portland needs to win to ensure not being in that play-in game.
Yep.
So them winning tonight, which we'll get to later, but they're up 20 now. So
yeah,
I think it's pretty clear who's wanting to lose that game. But I'll dive into some ridiculous reasoning and why Lakers fans are big mad and shouldn't be, because it's absurd. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the Lakers, because they're doing everything they can to stay out of that play-in tournament. That's a couple extra games they don't want to play, especially if it's going to be potentially against the Golden State team. I believe is no wait,
Yep.
Warriors. Yep.
okay. Golden State.
Golden State is who they're slotted in, and no one wants to face a hot Steph Curry right now. Nobody. Even if their team is kind of just like not so great, like they've been playing with a bunch of like second stringers for the longest time. There's still a team that can get a win on you any particular night, given what Steph Curry can do. So we'll dive into all of that and more. But again, our Mile High Spotlight, we're going to be hitting all of our Colorado teams on where they will be in the playoffs, or just the regular season if they're still, Rockies, and then off season for Broncos. So we'll touch on all that stuff. So it's a big show tonight, guys. I hope you guys are ready and saddle up. We're jumping right in here. So we're going to begin, since the NHL playoffs just kicked off already, and we're still we're off and running with that. We're going to start out with the NHL playoffs first. Now, for me, Scotty, I love the NHL playoffs. Like you, I don't spend a ton of time. I watch my hometown Avalanche a lot. I'll try to keep tabs on them throughout the course of the year, where they're at in the standings, and they've been one of the best teams, if not the best team, behind, or alongside Vegas. Tampa Bay's been incredible. So there's been a couple teams in there, but we're going to be definitely... I always love watching the NHL playoffs once they hit. It is so intense. I was watching some of the Pittsburgh game today. Man, it was back and forth, goal after goal, and just the intensity just amplifies that much more. So much fun. But let's dive in. Let's break down some of these matchups here, and we can go into what we think is going to be happening with these matchups. Oops, wrong one. Here we go. Let's get the right graphic here. So here's what we have to work with on the NHL playoffs. Now, all of these teams are, have maybe already played a game, or they're going to be playing games already. So, given that, let's just go ahead and throw in. So we had a couple play today. Minnesota actually beat Vegas today, 1-0, which that's, in my opinion, that's an upset. You'll see in our ticker right there.
Yeah.
The Islanders won 4-3 in Pittsburgh. That's an overtime, final overtime. Tampa Bay was up on Florida 3-2 most recently, and then you have Calgary and Vancouver playing. Actually, I think they're kicking off.
Calgary and Vancouver is they haven't finished their regular season. They're not in the postseason. They're playing because the Canadian division's sort of behind because of COVID, so they're finishing out the regular season. So those two teams are just playing for fun. It's a hey, people bought tickets to this game, so we have to play it. Kind of game.
So that's what we're looking at here. Now, of these, this is a different kind of a playoff scenario here. So as mentioned, the two of the top teams that actually had the same number of points in the NHL to end the season, Vegas and Colorado, will most likely meet, barring anything crazy happening in their first round series, in the next round early, before they even get to some of these other parts of the bracket here, which is kind of crazy to me. It's a little different, but that's just the way the new playoff scenarios work. You play within your division, and then you move on from your division. So for anyone who's new to the NHL playoffs, that's kind of what they shifted to with how they structured all of the divisions and the regions and everything else. So Vegas and Colorado, should they win their first round series, will have a power matchup in the next round. Now, they've been splitting all season long, and that'll be incredible. Now, look at some of these other. You have Pittsburgh, the number 1 seed, up top in the same side of the bracket. Washington Capitals are the number 2 seed, Boston 3, New York Islanders 4. So Pittsburgh already lost to New York today, so they have a little leg up there. The the Canadian corner of this bracket, I should say, Toronto came in with the best record there, getting the number 1 seed. Edmonton number 2, Winnipeg 3, Montreal 4. So that's those are the top 4 teams that came out of that region. And then finally, the last division is that Carolina number 1, Carolina Hurricanes, Florida Panthers number 2, Tampa Bay number 3, and Nashville 4. Scotty, when you're looking at this bracket, what are your first thoughts?
First of all, hockey more than any other sport has like the most tremendous parity ever. So when you talk about parity and you talk about, the ability to have every team at least competitive and not lopsided stuff, these 16 teams are very, like, when you have a 1 versus a 4, it's not exactly a mismatch. Like hockey more than ever, you get in the playoffs and like an 8 beats a 1, it seems like a 7 beats a 2. Like in a normal bracket, this year is obviously a little different with how they set up everything, but a lot of good matchups here. I mean, I think of the 4 quadrants, like the Canadian one is actually the weakest, and I think Toronto I like quite a bit there. Like I think Toronto has the easiest path and might be the weakest one, so it's ironic there. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I mean, we look at the games that have already completed so far, and highly competitive games. I think every game was a 1-goal game that's been finished so far. So we had let me pull it up because I already forgot. But yesterday, in the first game, the Capitals did beat the Penguins in game 1 yesterday in overtime, and in a highly competitive back and forth affair. That series is a toss up to me. I thought I was leaning Islanders, but Varlamov, their goaltender, former Av, did get injured right before the playoffs. Didn't play in game 1, so that had me thinking. Or I'm sorry, that's for New York and Pittsburgh. I'm talking Washington, Boston right now, getting all over the place. But it's going to be super competitive. Like you just talked about, we think it's going to be Colorado versus Vegas, and like a matchup of the 2 teams who had the most points in the NHL in the regular season. Then Vegas went out and lost, didn't score a goal, and lost 1-0 in overtime. You're on mute there, I think, Chris.
Oh no, I'm not.
No, now I can hear you. I heard you there. You there.
You hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
It was just that one line. I think you said something because your mouth moved, but I didn't hear you. Anyway, I mean, to have a 0-0 game in the playoffs, go to overtime, and then the Wild to get the first and only goal in overtime. Kind of a bit of an upset there. I know that the Wild are a tough team that actually were super competitive themselves. Today you had the 4-3 overtime with the Islanders. I mean, the 3 games that have finished so far in the playoffs have all gone to overtime. So that tells you how competitive and how back and forth. Like, we can make predictions and we can be dead wrong because these teams are really, really close, really evenly matched. We had, I think, all of a sudden, the Panthers are up 4-3 on the Lightning. I think when we started the show 10 minutes ago, I think the Lightning were up 3-2. All of a sudden, the Panthers have scored, I think, 2 quick ones and gone up 4-3. So, pretty wild stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get into who we like and go through the whole bracket. We might be leaning towards a certain team just because of, not to spoil anything, but I think you guys can kind of guess that we might be favoring a certain squad. But it's going to be super interesting to watch these playoffs because in more than any other sport, the NHL, anything can happen. In the NBA, you don't see those big upsets. Like, you basically can pinpoint, like, even though, are we frozen? Or am I just frozen?
No, you're good. You're good?
You don't see, there's 16 teams that make the playoffs, but in reality, there's probably maybe 6 that have a realistic shot of winning it all. So in hockey, there's some teams that are unlikely to win it, but none of these teams are out of it. So
surprised, but it wouldn't be a shock if like a Minnesota beat a Vegas. It's just one of those where you come to expect it, because NBA is a lot different. NBA playoffs, you don't see a lot of 8 seeds. Actually, if not ever. It's rare. It's something that is like far and in between. NHL, completely different story, which is what makes it exciting. Any one team can just get on a hot streak, and a lot of that is due to goaltending. If you have a goaltender that can just all of a sudden turn it on, you see the best goaltenders making it through regardless of the seed. So that's all it really takes. And if your goalie's not feeling it for a series, then man, you could be out of this thing quick. So love to see what ends up unfolding here. Now, I mean, we'll go. Should we just dive in? Should we just dive into our picks and just kind of go through, series by series and see?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Let's make it happen here. Let's just go, and we've got this already preloaded here, so hopefully we got this all set here. Let's see. All right, so we got our little bracket here. Now with this, where do we want to start, Scotty? I'll let you pick the corner.
Let's start top left. That makes sense to me. Let's start with Canada.
Okay. Now, of the, I'll let you. Do you want to just go one by one, and you could pick one, I pick one, or do we want to kind of just go in consensus? How do we want to do it?
I mean, we can just talk it out, and if we disagree, maybe like I have a trump and then you have a trump, but we haven't talked about this, guys, so we don't know who each of us is gonna pick. We haven't talked about who we'd like collectively, so we're just gonna fly through this and see what happens.
All right, now off the top here, Toronto's the 1 seed here. I do like Toronto in this game. I think they'll be the one advancing in this top corner. What do you think on this one?
This is, I just talked about how competitive everything is. I think this is actually the most maybe lopsided, not because I think Toronto's incredible. It's more that, Montreal is a team that had a, solid season, nothing spectacular. Like I said, that Canadian division to me seems like the weakest of the bunch. And I don't see an area, like you break down the different areas on offense, defense, goaltending, depth, coaching, any of those where some of them are close. I don't actually give the nod necessarily in any of those categories to the Canadians. I think this one's going to be a pretty quick series. I'd be surprised if it went past 5 games. I think Toronto takes care of things.
I like Toronto too. Okay, perfect. So we're in agreement already. We're off to a great start. Now the next one I have is the Oilers and the Jets. Now, for me, I really think the Oilers will come out of this one. A couple reasons. Oilers did finish second in their division. They finished the season on a 7-3-0 in their last 10, whereas the Jets finished 3-7 in their last 10. So there's a little bit of a momentum change here. The Oilers have been a better team over the course of the season. Now, they finished 35-19-2, and the Jets finished 30-23-3. So there's a little bit of a disparity there. I do think that the Oilers have been overall just a little bit better here. Goal differential, a little bit higher than the Jets over the course of the season as well. 29th in differential over their opponents compared to the Jets, 16. So Oilers just scoring more. And I just think that they're going to be coming out on top in this matchup.
Okay. The Oilers have, the guy who put up the best numbers in hockey by far, and it wasn't close this year, and Connor McDavid. Absolutely, 104 points in 55 games. That is
crazy.
Historically one of the top numbers on a per game basis ever. That's just wild. So when you talk about top lines, the Oilers top line is Connor McDavid and then guys. They're not guys. Obviously, if he's getting 104 points, those aren't all goals, right? So he's getting some assists there. I think Winnipeg's a little more deep, and the big key for Winnipeg is Nikolaj Ehlers, who suffered an upper body injury in April, and without him, they've been spiraling down the stretch. Haven't been really successful in off. They've really struggled offensively to piece things together. They got a familiar name with us with Paul Stastny, who was an Av for a long time. But
Yep.
the key's the one thing that makes me consider the Jets is they have the goaltending advantage in my opinion with the Vezina Trophy winner last season and Connor Hellebuyck, and had a great year again this year. So he's a guy. He's the type of guy when you talk about a guy that can just take over a series and keep you in it, even though maybe your other overall roster is overmatched, and just win you a series. He's a guy who can do it. Where, Oilers are fine. They have Mike Smith, and he's been playing phenomenal recently, but he is 38 years old. So, there's a concern like, is that going to hold up? People basically made fun of him for picking up Mike Smith, but he's had a 924 save percentage in his 31 games. Like, really, really solid. So, but still outmatched. So there's the one reason, and I think it wouldn't surprise me if this one goes 7. But if you like Edmonton, you're right. Edmonton's definitely played better going into the series and has the superstar in this matchup with Connor McDavid. So I'm good with going with Edmonton here.
Okay, let's do it. Let's lock them in. All right, let's see. So between Toronto and Oilers, I'll let you start on this one then. What do you think here? I think you like Toronto a lot. So do you think they get a win over the Oilers to make it to the next round?
I do. I think depth-wise, Toronto's going to be a lot deeper than the Oilers are. Obviously, they finished first for a reason, and as I mentioned. And a bit of a spoiler earlier, I think Toronto has the easiest road to that Final Four, but at the same time, not a sure thing at all. So I've talked about a lot of the pieces there and why I like them, but I think overall, like I just think Toronto has the easiest first round matchup. So even if the Oilers weren't to win, the Oilers are going to have a battle. I think it's going to be a 7-game series against the Jets, so they could lose that one. So it's hard to pick them to beat Toronto on top of that. I think, Toronto's going to be rested going into that series, whereas the Oilers or Jets are going to be coming off a battle of 7 games or close to it. So, give me Toronto to come out of that Canadian region.
Yeah, I like Toronto too. I think you're right. I think they're the best team coming out, and I think they'll make it past for all the reasons you said and more. So, I think Toronto's going to be the team making it into the Final Four. Man, it's weird. We just got done with the March Madness. We're getting more brackets going. We have the NBA bracket too. Like, it's a bracket world. Everyone's throwing out their brackets here. So, all right. So that's the top corner here. Where do you want to jump to next? You want to just stay on that side of the coin here?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Where do you want to start here? Do you want to start Washington and Boston? Go with that?
Yep.
Do it. All right. So go lead us off.
The bracket fight here is a little different because this is actually the 2-3 matchup. So I think Washington finishes the 2, Boston the 3 in this division. They played 8 times this season, 4-4 split. So that'll tell you how competitive. And we had a game yesterday, back and forth between these two teams. Like I said, the Capitals got a win in overtime, 3-2, in a game that actually shots wise. It was a highly defensive battle. Like, there weren't, for going to overtime, I think the shots were 32-26 in Washington's favor, but pretty competitive, a lot of hitting, not a lot of, Boston actually had a ton of power play, so they kind of had a missed opportunity here, even though they were out on the road in Washington they had four power plays to 1 for Washington. So missed opportunity that they weren't able to. They did get their one of their goals on the power play, but not take more advantage of that. This series is going to be super interesting. This one, obviously, when you look at Washington, it starts with Alex Ovechkin, one of the greatest players to ever play, but is up there in age, and he's there on his top line with Nicholas Backstrom. And that's a really good line. And in most situations, that would be the best top line in a series. But on Boston's end, you got Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, 2 really elite players and that line has played phenomenal this year. So I like that top line a little more actually than Ovechkin's. Um, this one is so close. I actually think Boston has the advantage in goaltending. Um, Overall, coaching's close. Everything right here, you could go back and forth. Um, we have a bit of an advantage knowing the Caps took game one. That helps. So I'm gonna just now, if you're picking Boston, you got to assume they're gonna win 4 of the next 6. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I don't know what I would have said before this series started, but now that Washington got game one, I'm gonna say Caps in 7.
See, I think I'm kind of in a similar situation as you because I think it will go to like a game 7. I think it's going to be a super close one. The reason, a couple of the reasons why, I don't know, Boston is kind of one of those teams that's kind of attractive. So there's a couple different storylines here. The Caps, they score more, but they give up more goals. The Bruins score less, but they give up less. Both of them had almost similar goal differentials, 32 for Boston, 28 for Washington. So it's, even though they're similar differentials, there's just two ways of how they got there. One was kind of just scoring a ton and outscoring opponents, when it came to just like, giving up goals as well. And the other one, Boston, just kind of, they only gave up 136 goals compared to 163 goals for Washington. So the goaltending and the defensive side of the puck has been a little bit more, just consistent on that side of the puck. So it's tough. Like, I like to lean towards the better goaltender in a series, and Boston's been giving up less goals, which again, they lost already. So I would say if this game didn't happen yesterday and we didn't have like that peep into, this initial game already, I would probably pick Boston. I'm with you though. It's hard for Boston, knowing that they lost game one. It's hard for me to pick Boston to win. I think if it goes 7, they have a chance. I don't know.
It's gonna be close. I mean, Boston had a better goal differential in the season. I mean, that one's a toss up. I'm only picking Washington, like I said, because they won game 1.
Yeah. If Washington wins, they don't go to game 7. So we'll just throw it out there. But let's go ahead. We'll pick Washington here. Let's pick Washington. I think they can outlast here, and I think they'll be in a good spot. So, all right. Finally, Penguins and Isles. So this game, we already had one earlier on today. This was a back and forth game, by the way. 1-point loss here. Now, the Pittsburgh Penguins are the number 1 seed. They have been on a hotter streak here, going 8-2-0 in their last 10. The Islanders, 3-4-3 in their last 10. So two different stories here. But given all of those stats based off of the regular season, goal differential is almost, it's 28 for the Islanders, 40 for the Penguins, plus 40. So Penguins should be the number 1 seed that should win this series, and they got kind of punched in the face here in this first one. They went down 1-0 early on in this game. Then Pittsburgh came back, scored 3.5 minutes later or so, and then it was just kind of a back and forth when it went into overtime, and then they ended up losing in overtime. And I think Pittsburgh, from what I remember when I was watching at the game, were getting more shots on goal, and they were doing some better things on the ice. They just got unlucky in the overtime. So, do I think the Pittsburgh Penguins can come back and win the series? Yes, I do. I think they are overall the better team, and I think they can outlast the Islanders, but it's not a great way to start the series.
Obviously, you look at this matchup, and this is two different teams by a lot. You have a offensive firepower team in Pittsburgh, a lot of talent, top line. Obviously, you got Sidney Crosby, Jake outscored teams 71-37 when they were on the ice this year. So really, really good top line. I mean, obviously top lines are playing against each other a lot. So that top line is studly. And the offensive depth is better for Pittsburgh as well on the second and third lines. But defensively, New York certainly has the advantage in this. And I don't know. I'm of the mind that like defense wins championships, right? In hockey, when you have the better goaltender and you have the better defense, yeah, it's not sexy. Like I would prefer Pittsburgh wins the series because I think they're a more exciting team to watch. I don't think the Islanders are a lot of fun to watch because they're more defensive focused. They're gonna ugly it up. They're gonna muck it up. They're gonna play a tight game and hope they can get a goal at the right moment to win the game by a goal. This is another one I think easily could go 7, probably go 7. It's tough. I mean, obviously the captain for the Islanders, Anders Lee, has been out since March with an ACL, so they're playing without him. But you look at the Islanders' playoff history, like last year they went to the conference finals after struggling a little bit. They weren't a great regular season team, but then they beat the Panthers in a they had to do a qualifier. Then in the first round they beat Washington in 5, and then they won against Philadelphia in the second round in 7 before bowing out to the eventual Stanley Cup championship in the conference finals with Tampa Bay in 6, but losing in overtime in game 6. So I kind of like, both these teams have a lot of experience in the playoffs, so this one's going to be tough. I kind of lean, especially after a game 1, I lean defense. I like the idea that the Islanders defense, like, it's not sexy. I don't want them necessarily to win, but I lean Islanders. So I don't know. We pick different teams, so I don't know what we do here.
You know what? I like it. And you know what? Islanders
we haven't picked an upset yet, so.
No. Yeah, because I think, I was going to go Boston in the last one. And then I went, kind of towards the Capital route just based off of that game 1. But again, it is one of those things where you win game 1, and if you make a good point on being a defensive team, all you got to do is just outlast. If you could just outlast with your defense and try to just limit goals, you're in a great spot, especially taking game 1. SR Knicks in the chat. I haven't followed NHL very much. Thanks for the great update on playoff hockey. Yeah, man, I'm glad you're able to jump in and get a little caught up. I mean, some of these things, like, we don't really get a lot of exposure to a lot of these teams to watch them. And, I mean, even our own Colorado Avalanche, unless you have certain, like, there's, like, some issues with TV stuff going on here in Colorado where you can't watch the Avs very much if you don't have certain networks. And you can't watch the Nuggets if you have certain, cable networks as well. So it's hard to catch hockey, especially your own team here in Colorado. But it's even harder to see some of these national games when you just don't know when they are, and it's tough. So we're here to help you understand all of the ins and outs that you may have missed over the regular season. So thanks for being a part of it, SR, and we'll keep rolling here through this. If you have any questions or any comments on anything we have going on, hit us in the chat. Same thing with anyone else who's watching. Love the participation. So let's do it. Let's go to Islanders. We're gonna do it. We're gonna go with that upset.
All right, let's go.
All right, so now Capitals and Islanders. Now, here's my thing. If the Islanders are on a defensive streak here, I don't hate them advancing and beating the Washington Capitals. Again, defensive teams and good goaltending is infectious, and it goes series after series, and it just keeps rolling. So if we're saying that the New York Islanders are good enough to outlast a potent offense in Pittsburgh and get to the second round, I think they're capable of outlasting the Washington Capitals, especially if that series goes 7, and like we think it might be a longer series. Washington coming off that, tired. I think this is a great spot for the Islanders.
I like where you're going there. I know we're throwing out a 4 seed right there, but you look at them and they finished with 71 points. They're not a 4 seed like like some of these other divisions where the 4 seed kind of had to squeak in. I mean, the other 4 seeds had, 64, 59, and 63. So them at 71, they're not a typical 4 seed. I mean, the Pittsburgh and Washington both finished with 77. Boston finished with 73. So they were barely the 4 seed. They actually finished with the same goal differential on the season as Washington did. They were both plus 28. So these are two far more evenly matched teams than people would like to think when you look at it. So I like where you're going. I mean, obviously I just said they played in the postseason last year and the Islanders took them in 5. Like, it was not even close. Islanders dominated the Capitals last year in the playoffs. I think if they match up in this series like we have predicted here, they do it again. And we got a 4 seed. Moving on to the I don't know, what do you call it? The Final Four? Like, because it's not like it's not a conference finals because they're all in. There's no conferences this year.
And we can't.
I don't know what you call it.
We can't do Frozen Four because that's taken.
That is college.
The NCAA, have already had Frozen Four. So,
but Final Four is taken by basketball, so we'll just call it Frozen Four. We're gonna call it Frozen Four.
The professional Frozen Four.
Yeah.
Mayday! Welcome to the chat, my friend. Welcome back. Hope you're having a great Sunday. 1 seed.
I'm assuming he's talking about the 76ers there.
Oh, yeah. We're not into the basketball. We're going to get there very, very soon, Mayday. We'll get there. So
we can talk about your Flyers if you want, Mayday. We're on hockey right now.
Yeah. We're I don't see him on the list though.
Oh. What happened there?
Didn't quite get there. They're playing for next season is what they're doing. So that puts us into a matchup within the Toronto Maple Leafs in the north and the New York Islanders, surprising everybody out of the east. So what do you think here, Scotty, as far as this matchup between Toronto and New York?
That's not so. Here's what's weird about this bracket. So actually, what's going to happen is they're going to reseed once they get to the Final Four in hockey. In the hockey, each division winner they're going to reseed based off points. So this is what we're looking at here. So you're right on that. But in this scenario, the Islanders likely would not play Toronto unless they're the top point team left. So they're likely to play. Likely to play whoever comes out of the West, whether that's if it's the Avs or Vegas coming out of the West, then they would play them as the 4 seed there. So but it's difficult with this bracket fight because they had to make a bracket, which you can't do a lot with. So
well, we'll see because then we can project.
It was so great. It was so great actually for the Avs to get the President's Trophy and win those last 3 games and get that 1 seed. The big difference is going to be when they make it to that Final Four. Yes, they'll get home ice through their divisional play here, but if they make it to the Final Four, if there's a sleeper team that makes it through, they won't have to face that team in that Final Four. They'll get the lowest, or they'll face the sleeper team. Maybe not one of those elite teams from one of those other divisions, I guess you call it. So, but yeah.
We'll be able to project though.
Yeah, so, we'll go through these other ones and then we'll talk about that Final Four.
Yeah.
Frozen Four, whatever we're calling it.
Frozen Four. We're stealing it from the NCAA. So let's start up on the upper right hand corner here. I don't think there's any. I don't think
Avs and 3.
I don't think we're gonna pick against entire league here. They won the trophy for best record. Now, they did pretty much finish with the same amount of points as Vegas, but they held the tiebreaker for getting more wins. So as far as that goes, that's kind of the difference here. Vegas is another one here. Both these teams, Vegas and Colorado, could be, if this was the NHL Finals, the Stanley Cup Finals, and you saw the Vegas Knights against the Colorado Avalanche, you wouldn't be upset about it. You would say those are the top 2 teams in the NHL. And they could potentially be playing in the next round. So, that's just how this works out, and it's going to be fantastic if that's how it plays out. It's kind of terrifying because the Avs have gone toe to toe with them each game. I think they split the season series back and forth, back and forth. As long as like I could remember back to early on in the season, but they could have a rematch here. I do think the Avs will beat the Blues. The Blues, you know, they're great. By the way, this is one of the best divisions in hockey, one of the top divisions. And
The top four are really good.
yeah,
Bottom four, not so much, but the top four are really good.
Here's these top four. The Avs finished 39 wins, 13 losses, 39, 13 and 4. The Knights 40, 14 and 2. The Wild 35, 16 and 5. And the Blues 27, 20 and 9. So the Blues are definitely like the lower end of this, but they still, finished with 63 points. Still really, really good. I do think that the Blues just they don't have the same power on their lines as the Avalanche. I think the Avalanche are just too strong for them. I think our goaltending, when Grubauer gets into the playoffs, Grubauer's had an insane season. He's had such a big year, and I think he's just going to continue to have that big year. We said goaltending wins in the playoffs, and I think there's not going to be any difference here. The better goaltender has been Grubauer, and I think they will end up, beating the Blues here.
Yeah, I'll dive in more to the Avs later because I agree. I'm taking the Avs here. Blues are a nice team. This isn't going to be a cakewalk. Like, they can't just overlook the Blues and think they're going to walk through this. The season series was 5-3 in favor of the Avs, but Blues are coming 6-1-3 in their last 10 coming in. So they're playing good hockey coming in. Their power play is pretty hot right now. It's gonna, if Jordan Binnington, their goaltender, can just absolutely start taking over games. Like, I think Grubauer is actually a better goaltender, but sometimes whatever that goal, it's gonna take Binnington being just absolutely on fire, because I think, top line, forward depth, goaltending, defense, like Avs have. The good news is when you make the playoffs from an Avs vantage point is you play your first line, your top line, like, a lot, right? More than you do so in a regular season game. And the Avs have a top five that I don't even know if there's another roster close when you look at the five guys they can put on the ice between their starting offense, top three on offense, wingers and center, and their two defensemen. Like, it's absurd. I'll dive into the names later, but it's so solid. And then you have Grubauer, who's played great this year, hopefully back. The big question mark right now for the Avs is the health of McKinnon, their best player. Been a little injured down the stretch. Only played like one game since May 5th. So it sounds like he's going to be ready to go tomorrow night. Like, he's going to play. We don't even know what the injury is. It's undisclosed, so can't really touch on that. But if he's healthy, I think they take care of things pretty easily. If he's not, I still think, they're the better team even without him in this series.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big X factor. I mean, they've been winning games without him, which, you still want him. He's still one of the best players, if not one of the top 2 or 3 guys in the entire NHL at his position. So I think that, you definitely want him. You want to make sure he's healthy, though, which is why they've kind of been very cautious with this undisclosed injury, whatever that may be. But either way, as long as everyone stays healthy, everyone else on the team, the Avs are stacked. I mean, they're in a great position. So we already have the Avs selected. Let's move on to the next one. Now, this next one was a surprise, obviously, because we didn't expect Minnesota to be coming out strong against a Vegas team who finished up there with the Avs in points and was one of the most dominant teams in the NHL this year. The Minnesota Wild started out a lot slower the season and ended up kind of, rebounding and getting some wins down the stretch. And they righted the ship pretty quick once they got on a roll through the middle part of the season. So the Wild have been good. They got a big win already, so they're up 1-0. But I still don't know if that's enough. I think the Knights are so strong. I think they will end up coming back and putting an end to, this little surprise, win in the first game. I think they'll start turning things around. I think they end up winning the series pretty handily after this.
Yeah, I mean Vegas, actually did outshoot him today. Wild held on and got a 1-0 win like we talked about in overtime. But this was actually the Wild won five out of 8 games against Vegas in the regular season. So they went 5-3 against Vegas in the regular season. So them winning in game 1 here, it just seems like sometimes, in other sports we talk about, it's matchups. It's all about matchups and who, your team fit. You may be a really good matchup against one team and not so good against another team. And this could be a situation where like that's the case. On paper, Vegas has the better roster, super dominant, was very close to obviously. I mean, I think the Avs and them had the same amount of points on the season, tying for the best record in all of hockey. So their first line's really good. Obviously goaltending. The Golden Knights have Marc-Andre Fleury from Pittsburgh days. Been really, really solid this year and leading the NHL in goals saved above average. So been really, really solid. And that's why he didn't give up a goal until overtime, but that wasn't enough. Cam Talbot for the Wild has been kind of up and down, but been playing better, and he's been great in the playoffs historically. So them getting a 1-0 win, like the Knights were only shut out in 3 games out of 56 all season. So for them to be shut out in this one is an accomplishment for the Wild. I'm gonna agree with you. Obviously the Wild took game 1, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Wild end up pulling this out. But I'm gonna go Vegas. Vegas has too much depth, just a better roster overall. They're a little less healthy, but they just kind of are better across the board. But matchups sometimes play, and this could be one where, Wild just kind of have their number. Now they're 6-3 on the season against a team that finished with tied for the best record in hockey. So we'll see what happens, but I'll agree with you. Well, let's go Vegas here.
Don't get me wrong. I'm going to be a huge Minnesota fan. I'm not in this series because, again, the Avalanche have just gone back and forth, toe-to-toe with Vegas. I think that would be a tougher matchup in the second round for the Avs, obviously, because they're the 2 top teams in the NHL. But, I mean, if you have a matchup issue with Minnesota being, in a position where they just have one team's number over the course of an entire season, who knows, man? Maybe they can make the life of the Colorado Avalanche that much easier if they end up pulling ahead in this series and potentially winning it outright. I love the Avalanche chances even more at that point. Then there's only, the only team I'd be worried about would be in the bottom, or this actually south end of this bracket. I think the East and the North don't necessarily scare me as much as some of the teams that may come out of the South, but I still think the Avalanche would still be better in most of those teams anyway. So we'll see, but Vegas is definitely going to be the biggest obstacle. Let's move on, though. Let's go down to this next part of the bracket. We got Florida and Tampa Bay. Scotty, lead us off.
Yeah, this one's going to be a barn burner. Now I want to see, because we've been talking and I haven't. They're playing live, so this one's been wild. This one's got 19 seconds to go. So
what's the score?
Looks like it. When we started, Tampa was up 3-2, and then I talked about how Florida jumped up and scored 2 goals straight to go up 4-3. Well, with 2 seconds to go, it's probably the final now. Tampa 5-4. So this one was a back and forth affair like anything we've seen, but another game just like every other game that's going to be decided by 1 goal. This is the first one that didn't go to overtime, actually. The NHL's got to be loving this so far. Like, highly competitive games. This one, no one was in a game that was 5-4. They were never separated by more than a goal. So, it was 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 3-3, 4-3, 4-4, and then 5-4. Like, just insane to have this competitive matchup in a game. Obviously the very similar records on the season. Tampa went 36-17-3. Florida was 37-14-5. This one's a bit of an upset just because Florida was so dominant at home this year. 20 wins, 5 losses, and 3 ties. Um, you look at shots, 39 apiece. Like, this game was competitive beyond belief. Um, Obviously now we know game one, right? Um, which always helps. This is the 2 versus the 3 in the Central. Um, in the regular season it was a 5-3, so I wouldn't take too much from that. Florida did take it 5-3. I think Florida, is a little deeper, while Tampa is a little more elite and top heavy. When you look at defense and goaltending, I think it also sways. I think defensively, Tampa has the advantage. Goaltending, I like Florida here. It's tough. It's very, very tough. This is one that I think goes 7, but based off the win tonight, getting a win on the road is huge. So it's hard to go against Tampa after getting a big win to start the series on the road. So I'm going Tampa.
So I was going to go Tampa. And you know what? If you were to ask me early on in the season, I would have said Tampa was one of the top 1 or 2 teams in the league, based off of just how they played over the course of like the season early on. I feel like they really came out strong, and they were up there early on in the season with the Avs as one of the top points in the NHL for a little bit. Then they kind of fell off a little bit. Go ahead.
I mean, they are the defending Stanley Cup champion, so
Yep,
they're a pretty good team.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, going into this, they've been a really solid team. I think I was going to lean towards Tampa Bay in this series just as a, generality based off of what I thought in my gut. Because this was a close series, I think, in my opinion. But my gut just tells me that Tampa is just a stronger team, mainly because, they're coming back. They are the defending champs. And I just feel like they have that nature about them that once it gets to playoff time, they just turn it on. But after this game, they had that resilience in game 1 to come back and get that win. I think I'm with you. I'm going to go Tampa Bay in this one. I think Tampa Bay takes the series. All right.
Yep.
All right. Now we got Nashville and Carolina here. So then we come back to the Hurricanes, who finished top in their Central Division, 36-12-8, and then the Preds 31-23-2. So the Preds are coming in a little bit hotter in their last 10 games, 7-2-1 compared to the Hurricanes, 5-2-3 on a 3-game losing streak coming into the playoffs here. So as far as this series goes, what are you thinking? We got, the Hurricanes are the number 1 seed. They're pretty strong, and it's kind of hard to go against a team that's played as well as they have. I mean, 36-12-8, that's really solid. 80 points. They're right behind the Avs and the Golden Knights when it comes to points. As far as goal differential, plus 43 on the season, which is really, really good. For me, it's hard to pick against Carolina here.
Yeah, I think this one's not that difficult. Don't overthink it. Yes, maybe one team has a better record in the last 10. But the Hurricanes won the season series 6-2. They certainly are a better offensive club. Way more talent on not only on their top line but forward depth. Defensively, it's probably pretty close. I don't know if I give a huge nod either way. And that's between defense and goaltending. It's pretty close in all directions. So I don't know. This one I don't need to spend a lot of time on. I think this one is pretty obvious. I think it's Carolina here.
Okay. Let's go back to the top here. Now we got Avs and Golden Knights. So this is going to be the series of the biggest series of the Stanley Cup playoffs potentially. You never know how good these games can be, with some of these other teams, but based off of the regular season and based off of the back and forth between both these teams and based off the fact that they pretty much tied in points for the regular season title, and it came down to the last game of the season, this is just going to be the fireworks show, the popcorn. Get your popcorn ready. T.O. said that, right?
Who did? T
Two.
O T O.
To
Yeah,
get your popcorn ready.
yeah. Get your popcorn ready. Yep,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
So that's what we're going to be doing in this series here because this is going to be a knockout series. This might be one of the most watched series in all the playoffs up until this point, if not the whole playoffs, until you get to the Stanley Cup Finals. So I don't know, man. This is the scariest matchup for me, just because anytime we've needed a win against anytime I felt really strong about the Avs going into like a 2-game set with the Knights over the course of the season, we end up splitting. I'm like, we're gonna win 2 this time. Nope, we end up splitting. And I don't think this is gonna be any different. I think this is gonna go 7 games. I think it's gonna be a long series. It's gonna be a hard fought series. But I think just the Avs' firepower is just so strong, and especially if Grubauer is consistent. Now, I don't have it in front of me on how many games Grubauer played against Vegas. So if he did not play a lot of the games down the stretch against Vegas, I wish I knew. I should have looked at that. But I think given the offense and given how the defense with Makar and everybody on the back end of our lineup, I think the Avs have a slight edge, and not to be a homer here, not to be the guy that is just, I got to pick my hometown Avs, but I just think the Avs are stronger here slightly, especially with all the firepower with Rantanen and Landeskog and McKinnon once he's back. And then you have Makar coming off the back. You have just the lines are just insane for the Avs. And you add in Grubauer, who's had an incredible season. I think if Grubauer's playing to the best of his ability through this series, I think the Avs win this series.
Yeah, I mean, what I kind of teased earlier, like when you have the top line of the Avs, which, offensively you're looking at McKinnon, Landeskog, and Rantanen. That's offensively the best line in all of hockey. Like, I don't even think it's debatable. Like, people could debate it, but they enter this when they're on the ice. They get 68% of the shots on the between them versus the other team. So they are dominating the play. They are elite among elite. Like, that's to me the top offensive line in hockey. You pair that on the back line with Cale Makar and Devin Taves, who they picked up from the Islanders in the offseason in a trade, who's been just Cale Makar, first of all, offensive is a good defensive player, but also an offensive weapon. Only NHL defenseman to finish with averaging over a point per game. And then you have Devin Taves, who has played phenomenal pairing with Makar this year. These are 2 young guys. Like, all these guys are pretty young. I mean, Landeskog's a little up there, but everyone else is so young, so talented. These guys are going to get a lot of minutes, and they're going to dominate when they're on the ice. Like, so it's really, really hard for me to find anything that Vegas can do when these 5 are on the ice, because, and that's just like the Avs go deeper than that, especially defensively. Like Ryan Graves,
Sam Girard,
is an elite defenseman. Patrick Nemeth, like Samuel Girard, who's paired with Ryan Graves. Like, they're deep everywhere. Grubauer has had the best season of his career. If he can continue that, like, I just think
you haven't even mentioned some of the guys on the front end of that second lineup: Jost, Burakovsky, and Saad. Burakovsky's been just on a tear in these last 3 or 4 games. Burakovsky's been unbelievable on that left wing. So him coming off the bench behind Landeskog is just insane. It's just so hard to go against what they can bring to the table. I mean, even their second line is solid. So it's hard for me just to take this lineup and just match it up side to side and say that the Vegas Knights, I mean, on paper, obviously, but I think the key in this matchup is going to be Philip Grubauer. If Groovy can be, I'm going to call him Groovy, by the way. You know how they all have they always had an E at the end of all these, Landy, right? They always add these.
I think of it as a Y, but yeah.
Landy, or whatever. Y, whatever. Patty. They used to call Patrick Waugh Patty. They just add the Y at the end of things, and it's all good.
Yep.
I think as long as Grubauer is playing to the same level that he played all season, it's going to be hard to beat the Avs, man. I don't care who you
I
are.
mean, they lost in the postseason the second round last year to a team that made the Stanley Cup, and they were on their like fourth goaltender, and it went to a seventh game, and they actually had the lead close to the end of the game, gave up a game tying goal, and then lost in overtime. So the Avs have, I mean, the Avs were pretty much picked to be the favorite going into this season, and all of a sudden they go out and get the President's Trophy. And then now I've looked at, like some experts picks, and no one's picking the Avs to win it all. So it's weird. Maybe they're just like, hey, it's not fun to pick the favorite, especially in hockey where everything's up in the air and anything can happen, which is absolutely true. But to not have anybody seemingly picking the Avs is kind of wild because, man, that top line and the depth and with the goaltending being better than ever, as long as Grubauer can stay healthy, they're going to be hard to beat.
You know what? And there's something about that I love, right? There's something about that is absolutely incredible because how many teams finish the best in the league that no one is giving credit to? This gives the Avs a chip on it. Like, if you got all those picks and facts to those, facts, I don't know if a fax is a thing anymore. You emailed or you shot a tweet over on everyone's picks over to the starting, lineups and all the coaching staff and everything else for the Colorado Avalanche. You put a chip on the shoulder of the best team in the NHL that finished with the best record. That's no one's giving them credit. No one's giving them the chance to win here. Man, that's a dangerous thing to do. And so I love that position. I love the fact that no one's picking us because if that's the case, that's giving a little bit more fuel to the fire. That's putting the chip on the shoulder of a team that might have not had one early on and might not have, had that extra fire to play for, right?
Yep. I know ESPN.com, just to reference that, had six experts, do some bold picks. By the way, one of them, their bold pick was the Avs lose in the first round. But who's winning the Stanley Cup? None of the six picked the Avs. We had, I think, two Torontos, a Washington, a Tampa, a Carolina, and a Vegas between the six of them. So none of them are picking the President Trophy winner, the number one team in the NHL through the regular season and the preseason favorite. It's just bizarre. It's bizarre that none of them are picking them.
They have eyes, right? Is this? Wait. I know who's behind it. It's Kendrick Perkins is behind this. Kendrick Perkins is saying he's probably got the Washington Capitals winning it all or something. Something weird.
Yep.
Or he's got the Montreal Canadiens. No offense to those teams. I think they all, anyone's got a shot. But let's go to the bottom half here. So this is going to be a tougher one here for us. I don't know. I haven't even... This is new. We haven't done this yet, so we're still taking this on the fly. But we have Carolina and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, who do you like in this matchup, Scotty? Who do you think has the edge here? Now, Carolina is the number one seed in this section of the bracket. But what do you think coming out of this one? I mean, Tampa Bay is the defending champs, and they're a pretty strong team. They can shock some people here, and it's technically not a shock, but I think this is going to be the biggest challenge for any team, whoever has to play them coming up here. Either one.
Yeah. If we knew this was the matchup, for sure, I would be like, maybe I lean Tampa. The problem is Tampa's going to have a battle, even though they won game one tonight on the road with Florida. They're going to have a battle with Florida, and I think Carolina kind of coasts against Nashville in that first round. So because of that, I just want us to maybe get that Final Four right. It's a much safer pick. Carolina getting that one seed has its advantages, and they're going to be, I think, a lot more rested, a lot more ready to go, whereas Tampa and Florida are going to be in a battle of who's the best in the state of Florida. So I lean with the one seed, the Carolina Hurricanes here. to move on.
I think I'm with you on that one as well. Carolina, I think with that 1 seed, again, it's being fresh for the next round. I mean, that's a huge thing, especially if you get beat up in your series. Hockey, physically, you could get beat up in your series, and who knows how you're coming into that next one. Rest is always big, I think, in the NHL. I go Carolina as well.
I mean, Carolina lost 3 games at home this year. They were 23-5 at home, and they're going to have home ice advantage. So
they're solid.
They had the best home ice record in all of hockey. So hard to go against them when they have that advantage.
Okay, so that leaves us with the Avs, the Maple Leafs, the Islanders, and the Hurricanes in the Final Four. So, given the seeding here, we have the Avs as a 1, the Carolina as a 1, Toronto as a 1, and New York Islanders, I think, as a 4.
Yep.
So then, if that's the case, how does the reseeding work here then? Would you know who goes where?
Yeah, it would be Avs versus Islanders here. The Avs as the top seed.
Number 1 overall, right?
Correct. So they reseed at this point, and the Avs would play whoever the team with the least points is, which in this scenario would be the Islanders.
And then that would leave a matchup with the Maple Leafs and the Hurricanes. Now, we can't necessarily do that here based off of this bracket. So
we're gonna just have to pick the Maple Leafs and Avs.
So yeah, so let's see. I mean, obviously, I think the Avs will be in if they do end up coming into a play-in with the Islanders. I think they win that series. I think they're the better team between the two. And then if you see the other series, the Carolina and Toronto, I think Carolina's the better team there. So we would be looking potentially at an Avalanche and Carolina Stanley Cup, which we can choose right now in this side of the bracket, and then we would just have their winner there. So
that's true.
So let's just go ahead and do that then. Carolina.
You're taking Carolina.
I am not taking Carolina. I'd probably take the Avs again for the same reasons we've been saying from the very get-go. The Avs will have home ice advantage. They've been playing well at Ball Arena. And I just think Carolina away from home, like you mentioned, they're just not as good as they are at home. So that home ice advantage is going to be good. I think this maybe goes 6 games, potentially. I don't think it goes 7. I think the Avs will take it there, but I think that's about where I would see it.
Yeah, I think if the Avs, the further they make it, the better odds I feel about them just dominating teams. Because if they're making it past teams, that means they're playing good hockey and doing what they should be doing, and not playing down to competition or anything like that. So they're the most talented team in the NHL. They should take care of business. If they've made it this far, I don't even think Carolina is going to be the most difficult team they had to face throughout. So, Carolina was an average team, not an average team on the road, but they were 69-3, wouldn't have home ice against the Avs. And you're like, oh, well, there's not a ton of fans, but home ice played huge this year in the NHL. And it doesn't quite play that way in playoffs traditionally. At the same time, these teams have only had to travel a little bit. So now traveling a little more, they've all been regional travels. They haven't had to travel far. Traveling a little more will make a difference. That'll affect them a little bit. I just think the Avs are too much, and somehow we both landed on the Colorado Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup. Hoisting Lord Stanley.
There it is. Everybody, we have our prediction is the Colorado Avalanche. Now, the goal is to add to this guy back here, this little Stanley Cup chain. I haven't had to put one of those up in a while, but that's hopefully I can put another one on the wall, and we can have some fun with this. So, yeah, Avs. Again, I think that biggest series is going to be, and once they get past, if they can get past the Golden Knights, I think everything is downhill from there. So that's going to tell you everything you need to know. The worst nightmare scenario for me is if they lose to the Golden Knights again. Well, not again, but if they lose to the Golden Knights, in a close series, and they lose again in the sense that how they lost last year. Now, they're going to have a lot healthier of a team this year because they won't be on their third string goalie. So, that's going to be a benefit. But it's all, I think this top corner right here, this matchup is going to be one of the biggest matchups that's going to decide a lot. Because, I don't know, depending on Vegas and how they end up coming out of this, if they end up playing Carolina, maybe that's a different series. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the same outcome as we would have for the Avalanche. I think potentially you could have, one of these two winning the Stanley Cup. So, who knows? But that's what we got here for you guys. We'll see how this ends up playing out. I hope you guys enjoy watching the NHL playoffs. If you're not a big NHL fan, give this a try just this season. This is a new thing that they've done with this setup in the playoffs. So make sure you're checking it out because, it is a different twist on things than you would normally expect from, historically, a different playoff scenario. So, excuse me. But yeah, so make sure you're checking them out. We'll be keeping track as the playoffs move on. We'll be updating, our own little bracket here. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on if we got this right or if we got this wrong. If you have thoughts on your favorite team, if we mentioned them, or if your team is on here and we didn't have them going, why you think they're going to go further, and we can debate that. That would be fun. That's a lot of fun. So as of right now, we have our hometown Colorado Avalanche going all the way and winning it all. So that's where we are. But let's go ahead. That's gonna, we'll put the playoffs on the side for the NHL, but we have a lot to talk about on the NBA side. Now, we had some things happen here where we were able to find out this afternoon a couple new, developments when it came to who locked in to certain seeds and everything else. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. Let's go ahead and dive in. So here is just that we couldn't put together the entire bracket here because we don't have all the answers yet. So it's hard based off of some of these late games, especially, the Lakers are playing later, the Portland Trailblazers and the Nuggets are playing a little bit later. They're playing right now, in the day, I should say. And so it's hard to put this together. So here's just the play-in tournament and then the regular tournament or the regular playoff and how it's going to work here. So, this is new for this year. This is brand new. So, you've had a lot of players that may or may not be fans of this tournament play-in, but it is what it is. This is what we're going with, and this is how it's going to work. So, we're going to have the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th teams that are going to all be playing in the tournament. Now, the winner of the 9-10 is going to automatically be that 8 seed.
7-8.
He's
going to be the 7-8. He's going to be the 7.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. You're right. And then, so we're going to decide those last 2 seeds, the 7th and 8th seed, on each side, the East and the West, through the play-in tournament. So that's kind of how it works there. Now, up to this point, we've already had some of these in place, but let me just give you a quick update this afternoon based off of what we found out. So the Warriors ended up fending off the Grizzlies this afternoon to clinch the 8th spot. So, Steph Curry will be jumping in and trying to make a miraculous run here. The Suns edged out the Spurs, so that forces the Jazz to win for first place tonight. So that makes the Jazz game a little bit more interesting later on. And then, actually, let me pull up the scores here because I think we had some teams playing that I haven't really been staying up to date with here. So we're going to keep you updated here. Right now, current games going. The Lakers are up 91-76 currently over the Pelicans, which the Lakers are hoping to win, and the Portland lost. Portland is just crushing Denver right now, 113-88. So if that 7.5 left in the fourth stays, which it should, then that puts the Lakers in the play-in tournament, which is Scott's big.
Love it.
You love every second of that. We actually saw Bill Hanslick earlier. Shout out to Bill Hanslick. We forgot to tell him, but we didn't. We were supposed to tell him to, put in a word with the guys that they need to
Make
have
sure
him
and
lose.
lose today.
But
Yep.
we forgot to tell him, and so the message still got there. So we'll touch on that here in a minute. The Knicks beat the Celtics, which that means that locks in the 4 seed in the that locks in seeds 4 through 6 in the East. So the Knicks' unexpected rise has carried them all the way to home court advantage in the first round. When's the last time you saw that? I could say that about the Knicks. Doesn't happen very often.
It's been a long time.
Man,
been a long time.
Spike Lee is living in paradise right now. He's gonna make a movie about this season.
Yeah, but they might win a series. Congrats. Make a movie about that.
And then the Wizards top the Hornets this afternoon as well. They secure the 8th spot for them. So there we have it. The Wizards are there in the mix. So that's kind of what we have from early on in the day. Now, again, there's a lot of implications. So Dallas controls its own fate. A win over Minnesota locks in the Mavericks into the 5th spot, which
that's not happening.
Currently, yeah. So
that's the biggest surprise for me is I don't know why Dallas is throwing their game tonight, but they are.
It's super weird. I don't understand that. That's kind of strange. So as far as some of these other games here, let's just go through some of these others. So the Milwaukee needs Brooklyn's help to move up to the 2nd place matchup, which Brooklyn ended up winning. So that's already done. If the Nets the Nets didn't cooperate, the Bucks will see the 6th seeded Miami in round 1. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. Let's see.
Yeah. I mean, the big news is literally going to be, well, on the East, I believe the 7, 8, 9, 10 matchups are now decided, right? So you have Boston as the 7 facing Washington as the 8, and then Indiana as the 9 playing Charlotte as the 10 seed. So just to be clear, in these 7, 8, 9, 10 matchups, this is new. So the 7 and 8 play, and the winner is assured the 7 seed. The loser moves on to play the winner of the 9-10. So in the 9-10, the loser's eliminated. The loser's eliminated, and the winner will play the loser of the 7-8 game in order to get that 8 seed. So it's a play-in. It's a one-game thing. What we've been dreaming of is, even though the Lakers are going to be the 7 seed in the West, that somehow they're going to play Golden State, which was kind of fun today. Golden State and Memphis, the 8-9, had the same record today, played each other, and then with the winner being the 8 seed. And Golden State, I mean, Curry went for 46, so he's firing on all cylinders. Can't wait for him to beat the Lakers in a couple days here when they play in that 7-8 game, because the Lakers are going to be playing in that playing game. The Nuggets are down 117-94 with 6:34 to go. They're not really trying in this one. And I want to talk about this for 1 second relating to this. So there's a ton of Lakers fans that are really mad at Nuggets. They're like, that's not a winner's mentality. If you really believe you were going to win, like, you would just try and play whoever. You're like, they're dodging the Lakers. But let's pretend the Nuggets were in this position and they were playing in a meaningless game against a meaningless team. Every Laker fan would be like, yeah, no, that makes sense that they're resting their guys. Right?
I mean,
right? Like, so the fact that everyone's mad, like, they don't owe the Lakers anything. They don't owe them anything at all. So when people are saying they're just ducking the Lakers, I don't think their actions would be any different regardless of who they were playing, because this game doesn't mean anything for them. They're going to be the 3 or 4, which it doesn't really matter that much. That's the only thing that's up in the air right now. And the Clippers, who they're battling with the 3 and 4 with, are in a battle. It's 108-104 the Thunder right now. So the Clippers are trying to lose once again themselves. The Thunder have won like one of their last 23 games, but here they are up 4 against the Clippers with 3:52 to go. So the Clippers should be more embarrassed than the Nuggets for sure. The Laker fans being mad at the Nuggets for not playing hard in this game should just be embarrassed with themselves because there's no reason for them to do it. There's no reason for the Nuggets to be competitive in this game. It doesn't even have to be about fear of playing the Lakers. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, they're just like, why would you risk hurting someone or giving your all? Like, Portland's gonna come into this game playing way harder regardless because this game means so much more.
Yeah.
So
yeah. They're
that's
trying
hard
to dodge that
hard to
play
fight
in the
against.
tournament. They're trying to dodge the play in tournament. And I would say to those Lakers, like, this is the roster that you've built. You've built a roster with some older players, aka LeBron James, a very hurt a player who gets hurt a lot, AD, and you've built this team. If you would have done your work and put in the effort throughout the course of the season, if their injuries don't play, a factor or whatever, like, all of those things play into where you're at currently in the standings. So don't give me this BS about, you guys should lose this game. Why should we, as you mentioned, why should we help them? What do we owe them? What is it? It doesn't matter. None of this matters for us. We did our work in the regular season to get us to this point. It's kind of like that argument of like, oh, well, we lost the game because of the referees. Well, why was it close in the first place? How many free throws did you miss? How many, bad turnovers did you have that maybe put you in a situation? You don't lose a game because of referees. You lose a game because you didn't play well up until the point where it came down to the last minute and you ended up losing. That's what this is. They're right now that team that blames the referees for losing a game. And that's what they're saying in the standings here. It's like, if you would have done your work early on in the game, you wouldn't have made all those mistakes early on in the season, or you wouldn't have gotten hurt and you didn't have these liabilities, then you wouldn't be in this position. You would be in a higher seed and you would be sitting pretty and you wouldn't care, right? So that's my argument back to any Laker fan who comes out and like, oh, well, we should. It's because you guys are in a bad position that you don't want to be in, and you're terrified because, one, the Lakers have two players that are injury prone and not 100% potentially at this point. That's LeBron and AD. Your top two players haven't played a lot because of various reasons, injury-wise, and that's just the way it is. You put a lot of money into two players that you should have seen this coming. LeBron's not getting any younger, and AD, when's the last time he's played a full season without getting hurt?
When you fall to the ground every second, you're bound to get injured, right?
Oh, yeah. By the way, speaking of moving forward.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go. Yeah, finish that.
I just want to say to everyone that thinks I'm afraid, like, as a Nuggets fan, I'm afraid to play the Lakers. I'm not afraid of the Lakers. I'm afraid of the Lakers plus the officials. I know that sounds petty. I know that sounds different. But, man, even yesterday in their game, they outshot free throw wise against an Indiana team that like didn't even play their two best players and it was meaningless to them. They won by a few, and the free throw disparity was like 36-19. Like, I saw it last year. Were the Lakers the better team against the Nuggets? Yeah, probably last year. But man, the officiating was heavily, in my opinion, slanted. And I'm not a guy that likes to blame the refs, but in that series against the Lakers, like, it was just embarrassing at times. Like, less with LeBron than Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis just is a 7-footer that can't stay upward. Like, he falls down all the time, and then they just bail him out with a call. Like, you're 7 feet tall. We just played him the other week, and he flailed against Campazzo, thinking Campazzo just knocked him over, and Campazzo's about 5'8". Like, stop. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, be a man, Anthony Davis. Like, I respect you as a player a lot. Like, you're a great player, but just man up and play real. Like, don't flail your body around and fall over all the time.
And I don't want to make this all about the Lakers, but there are some things that, Nick Wright, I know he's a guy that both of us like a lot, that just had some takes early on like we talked about this in the last episode and everything else, but this is different than what we were just talking about in the NHL, where it's a star-driven league. You want the best teams in the NBA Finals each and every year. You want the LeBrons versus, the top, whoever the top team in the East is, the Celtics, Lakers, Celtics. That gets viewers. Just like the big names, the big stars. When it was the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Lakers, Cleveland Cavaliers and Golden State Warriors, I should say, not the Lakers. You want Steph Curry versus LeBron, and the NBA is very good at putting those matchups together. They're very good about making sure those top teams make it as far as possible. And I think it's a ratings game. Nick Wright said it in his little, if you watched his little spiel about when he's driving in his car, because he got a lot of hate. He got a lot of people coming at him when he said that Jokic shouldn't get the MVP for whatever, and then he ended up saying it's a ratings game. Like, no one wants to see Jokic in the finals. No one wants to see the Nuggets in the finals. That's a true take, and from somebody who works in the media and wants to see the ratings. They want the best ratings possible. They want the most eyes on the TV, right? Because that's what they do. So that's just what it is. And it's unfortunate for teams like Dallas and Denver and the Indianas of the world and Portland's of the world. Like nobody, those are the teams that suffer in this big thing. And then the Clippers, the Lakers, the Celtics, anyone, the Brooklyn Nets now are going to be in that conversation. Everyone wants to see Brooklyn because they got the star power. But we hope Mayday's boys, number 1 seed, can take out the Brooklyn Nets in the East. So that's going to be the big one there. But it's just a crazy thing, man. One last note I'll just leave you with. I'll just to contemplate. LeBron doesn't have a lot of time left, it seems. He's been hurt. He hasn't been able to play a full season. I don't know if he can make it another 2 seasons. He's not a Tom Brady. Do you think when he's gone that AD can carry the Lakers to championships? Just throwing that out there, because that's what you've put your franchise on. If you're a Lakers fan, and you gotta start figuring out who's gonna be up next to fill in for like a LeBron. If let's say he's gone and AD ends up being your savior. I don't know.
You're talking about the AD who played before last year in New Orleans and never won a playoff series? That AD?
That AD.
Okay.
I already know my answer. I already know my answer to that question.
No, he would need a lot of pieces around him. Like AD compared to, I think it's a joke to compare Joker to AD at this point. Like, Joker's a far superior player in my mind to AD. Like, I don't even think it's close.
Yeah.
So the fact that Joker's not one, no, AD can't lead a team, and that's dependent on him even being healthy, which half the time he's not. So, listen, phenomenal talent. He's played really well at times, and obviously with LeBron and him and that roster, it's worked out well. But I don't know, it's just a manufactured roster. Like, what player on that team did the Lakers draft that is contributing? No, Kuzma? Is it like Kuzma? Like, I don't know. It's kind of annoying to me.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they have going forward here. But,
we do now know, in a back and forth battle, the Clippers managed to flop enough. They allowed the Thunder to score 117 tonight, and the Thunder won. So the Nuggets will be the 3 seed. They will play the Portland Trailblazers in the first round as the 6, and Dallas will match up against the Clippers in that 4-5.
Which, I'll take that. I mean, that's what we talked about early on, and that's what we figured was going to happen, based off of the fact that, I don't know, I felt like that was going to be one of those matchups that I didn't hate for the Nuggets. So this is going to be a rematch of this game that we're currently watching right now. Obviously, the Portland Trailblazers are winning 124-107, but Obviously, the Nuggets were trying to lose this game on purpose. It's not any rocket science here. They weren't going out to win this game. So the Lakers, as much as they did, as much as they did to try to win today to help their cause, gonna fall a little short. They're up on the Pelicans, 100-90 at the moment. Still playing. Also, the Timberwolves are smashing the Dallas Mavericks right now, 126-109, with 5 minutes and 43 seconds left in that game. Now think about that: 126 points on a Mavericks team, and there's still 5 minutes and 43 seconds. There's still like a whole half of the quarter to play. So that, to your point, that's kind of a head scratcher as well. Like, you know, you would think they would want to just come out stronger in this game, but maybe they wanted to do something a little different here.
I mean, they knew they were going to be either the 6 or 7, or I'm sorry, 5 or 6. So I guess they didn't care what they were. I think they probably assumed that the Clippers were going to win tonight, but the Clippers sure did. Clippers just lost back-to-back to Houston and the OKC Thunder. So that's embarrassing that they, like, therein lies a problem. Like, that's a team that I'd be like, you're the Clippers. Like, man up and play basketball. You're supposed to be one of the top teams in the NBA, and you're going to fade and lose against two of the, I don't know, what, 4 worst teams in the NBA. So whatever. Now we know what it is. Going into let's talk about these playing games, because we have let's start with the East. We got 7-8. What did I say? It was Boston versus Washington in the 7-8 game, and then the 9-10 Charlotte versus Charlotte being the 10 at Indiana. Who do you like in those?
So if we're going into those, I definitely, Boston losing Brown in that one. I just, Boston's on a weird trajectory. I don't know. They're just, I feel like they're gonna struggle in that one for some reason. I don't feel strong. I don't feel strong about either of these teams actually, but of these two, I don't know. Boston, I mean, they have a 125 win tonight over the Raptors. So, oh no, that was the Pacers. I'm sorry. Boston ended up losing to the Knicks tonight. I just don't like the way the Boston Celtics have ended the season and injuries. So I don't necessarily like Boston in this series. I think the Washington Wizards, because you said, yeah, Wizards and Boston, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Russell Westbrook has been playing again. Triple-double machine. He had a triple-double today, 23, 15, and 10. And he willed that team again, 115-110 over the Hornets, who were playing in the other game. And I just think that they have a little bit more, to them right now. They're playing a lot better right now, and I lean Washington. So that's my thoughts there. And in the other game, it's hard to go against the Pacers, against a young Hornets team. I like the Hornets a little bit, but I just think the Pacers have a little bit more to throw at them. I think, Domantas Sabonis, he's just a stud. I think the Pacers are a team that had higher expectations. They should be, I think they should have been a little bit better this season. They didn't live up to those expectations, and that puts them in his play-in tournament. But I would lean towards the Indiana Pacers in that one.
Yeah, going into these games, I mean, Boston, like you talked about, just lost Jaylen Brown. Washington's been playing really well in their last, quarter of the season to get in this position. Obviously, you have Westbrook, who just shattered the top triple-double career record. A lot of good with Bradley Beal. That backcourt's really, really good. I'm a little surprised. I think Boston's favored by 3.5 in this game, because I think when you look at public perception of this game, I think most people lean towards Washington. You hear about Westbrook, you heard about Brown being injured, but then again in Vegas they have Boston as a favorite. Because I agree with you. I'm like, I think Washington. I like when I went to look at this line, I'm like, I bet this is close to. I could even see Washington being favored, even though it's at Boston, based off of how these teams have played recently. But it's not. You do have a Boston team that went 21-15 at home versus a Washington team that went 15-21 on the road. So in that essence, it makes sense. Boston had a plus 1.4 point differential versus Washington minus 1.9. So, and I think Westbrook maybe plays them out of this game a little bit. And I think you have a coaching advantage with Stevens. And overall, I'm going to take Boston in this one.
You got Boston?
And I'll be right back. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Boston depth chart, I mean, Boston does have a really solid team still, starting lineup. I think their depth is where they struggle a little bit. So, I mean, you still have Kemba, Marcus Smart, Evan Fournier, Jason Tatum, Robert Williams. I mean, that's a great starting lineup for them. I still think that outside of that starting lineup, they're really not as good. So when their guys come off the floor, I kind of worry about them a little bit. Whereas, you know, Washington doesn't have a ton of depth necessarily either. However, I just the way they've been playing, I just think that they've been playing a little bit better overall. So I think that's kind of where I look at this matchup, and I'm just like, it's the eyeball test. You still have Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal, Rui Hachimura, Alex Len coming in at the center position there. And so, you know, you have, you know, a pretty good starting lineup. You still have Bertans coming off the bench, Ish Smith, you know, not great options, but still, you know, still available there. But I think, you know, honestly, I think this is going to come down to which bench can come in and play a little bit better, because both starting lineups are pretty decent, I would say, you know, in the Boston and Washington matchup. So it's just whether or not they're going to get some production from that second unit on each side. So we'll see. But as far as the other game goes, yeah, I had it was the Hornets.
Indiana, Charlotte. Yep.
Yep. Did you have who do you have in that one?
You know, there's another one. It's at home for Indiana. Indiana is an anomaly this year. They were 13-23 at home this year, and 21-15 on the road. So here's a team that played record-wise far better on the road. This team likes to get up and down. So, like no one else in the league, they ended up with a point differential of 0.0. So they averaged 115.3 points per game, and they gave up 115.3 points per game. So here's a team that doesn't really get after it defensively. I don't know if they have the offensive talent to really, you know, put up 115 in a playoff game. So to me, I kind of look at Charlotte. Charlotte's been struggling down the stretch. They're losers of 5 straight down the stretch. You know, some of them close, some of them not that close. They had a big one against the Wizards the other night. Lost on the road at Washington by 5. Nothing to be ashamed about there. Not a great team, but they do have a former Jayhawk for me.
He's been a huge addition to this Pacers team ever since he had that issue where they took that tumor out, and you know, one of those guys where he just has been flourishing. Malcolm Brogdon, Justin Holiday, Aaron Holiday, the Holiday brothers, Jeremy Lamb. I just think there's a lot more veteran presence on the Indiana Pacers that just kind of lend themselves to, you know, being able to put together a better lineup that can just, you know, outlast the Hornets. So that's just where I'm at there.
These playing games are going to be a lot of fun. The ones that are set right now are all within 3.5 points in the spread. So Indiana is the biggest favorite at 3.5 over Charlotte. Boston's a 3-point favorite over Washington, and we're going to dive into the West right now. But Memphis right now is a 3-point favorite over San Antonio.
So wait, so
And then we'll see. They haven't posted a line for the Lakers and Warriors. I would expect that to be the biggest spread because it's the Lakers, but you can't shy away fully from just Curry taking over. And man, do I hope that happens.
yeah, it's going to be definitely an interesting, definitely interesting. So, so man, I don't know. A lot of people are kind of like, at least a lot of the players are kind of back and forth with this play-in game on how they feel about it. But for me, I think the play-in games, I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. I mean, honestly,
I only heard one guy upset with it.
True.
And he's a baby.
Yeah. I think there's only a couple people that are in that play-in game like realm. I think anybody who's in the top half of the play-ins are like maybe not so excited about it. Anyone who's on the bottom end of the play-ins, like the 9th and 10th place teams, are like, sweet, I'll take it.
Yep.
Get us a chance in here. So, yeah, man, I think that's going to be, interesting. I think more so than anything, it makes those games exciting to watch because those teams are going to go balls to the wall and try to play as hard as possible to get into the next round. And then the playoffs start from there. So it's just a nice start out to the season, or the playoff season, I should say. So we'll see what happens here. We'll do one last look, and then we're going to do a quick little dive into our Mile High Spotlight, and then we're going to finish up the show strong. So let's go ahead. Any other scores? Let me double check here. So the Nuggets officially have lost to the Portland Trail Blazers. So they're, as mentioned, that's going to be set. The Timberwolves officially beat the Mavs. Lakers win. Thunder beat the Clippers. The Jazz lock in that number 1 overall seed, which I would never expect to say and never have that come out of my mouth. But
did you think you would have expected Phoenix to be that team, though?
Let's just say I don't expect the Jazz or Phoenix to make it to the very end of the road here. Just throwing out that.
I mean, the odds favorites are right now on the 7 and the 4 seed in the West to make it out. When would you ever see that in basketball? Those la teams. Man, I really wish the Nuggets had Jamal Murray. With Jamal Murray, I think the Nuggets could make a serious run at this thing.
Yeah, that would be incredible, man. I would take that every step of the way. So, when do these games start? By the way, when do they kick off? I think do they have?
So yeah, the East 7, 8, 9, 10 games are going to be on Tuesday. So Charlotte at Indiana, our time, Mountain Time, starts at 4:30 with Washington, Boston at 7. And then the West is going to be on Wednesday, 5:30 San Antonio, Memphis, Golden State at LA at 8 p.m.
Perfect. Yeah, so Golden, man, I'm going to be glued. Actually, no, we're going to be glued to that live streaming that Wednesday for our Wednesday show. On that, that game is going to be at 8 o'clock, so it's going to start right as we start. We're halfway through our show. So we'll have an idea of what happens with the San Antonio-Memphis game at that point, but then we'll be able to watch the end of the Golden State Lakers game as we're getting off stream. So that'll be fun stuff.
I do have some bad news on my own part. I haven't told you this, Chris. On the Wednesday show. On the Wednesday show, I'm not for sure out, but I'm most likely out for Wednesday. Going back to Kansas, my grandmother passed away.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so hey, it's a difficult thing, but it'll be good to go back to Kansas, see some family I haven't seen in a while, and get to see them and kind of bond with them, get my family back there and celebrate a woman who had a really good 93 years of life. So
there you have it.
That means I may not be on the Wednesday show. We're driving out there on Wednesday to Kansas. Funeral's early Thursday, so might be difficult for me to get on the Wednesday show this
We'll run
week.
that solo. We'll run that solo with all you guys. So that'll be good to go. So yeah, you go chill with the fan, and we'll be on here live with you. So yeah, so it's gonna be a fun Wednesday from the NBA perspective, I should say. How about that?
Yep. Well, and the NHL we got going. You're gonna be also streaming live for Avs game 2, so you're gonna have a lot of excitement going on.
A lot to happen here. Well, let's dive in real quick to our recap. Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time here because we spent a lot of time talking about the Nuggets and Avs already when it came to the early on playoff picture. So, obviously, the Nuggets end up locking in the 3 seed overall, so they should be playing the Portland Trail Blazers, and they will be, starting off that series hopefully strong at home here for that. So as far as this coming week, TBD, that's going to switch over here to games against the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, as far as the Avalanche go, their schedule's already set, and they're ready to go starting on Monday. So they're going to get the first game against St. Louis Monday the 17th. And then Wednesday is game 2. The 19th, they'll be wrapping up the last couple games. Hopefully, if it goes that long, it'll be the May 21st from Friday. Sunday, May 23rd is when they would complete the series if they end up going for the sweep there for the 4 games there. So yeah, a lot of exciting things going on in Mile High Sports here. Now, the Rockies. Let's shift over to the Rockies. We haven't touched on them quite a bit so far because it's playoff time. I mean, this is one of my favorite times of the year when it comes to NBA, NHL playoffs. But we still have baseball going on. Rockies 15-26, fifth in the West, so that's good for last. But had a decent week this past week. Went 3-4 overall. So had losing series against San Diego, ended up pulling out the last game and avoiding the sweep, and they finished that one with a 3-2 win, and then a 4-game set with Cincinnati, which they split. So in those games, they put up some big numbers on the first end of those, so 13-8, 9-6, and then they end up this is the story of the Rockies. They end up losing games by like 1 run, so many times. I feel. Even some of these, close games, they just can't get over the hump on them. So they end up losing 6-5, 7-6 in the latter end of that series to Cincinnati.
Yeah, no. I mean, you look at these, you look at 3 and 4, and you're like, for a Rockies team, that's fine. They should be on a 5-game winning streak, actually, right now. They should have swept Cincy. They lost 6-5 to Cincy in extra innings and 12 innings yesterday in a game. They, in the 7th inning in a 2-2 game, had a leadoff triple, didn't get that guy home. And then in the bottom of the 10th, after Cincy didn't score, had a guy on third with 1 out, didn't get him home. So no one to blame but themselves. And then today's game, lost 7-6 in a game. They entered the 8th inning up 6-1. So you enter the 8th inning up 6-1. They gave up 4 in the 8th. So they were still up 6-5 going to the 9th inning and gave up a 2 spot in the 9th and didn't put up any runs and lost 7-6. Like, that just cannot happen. So instead of having a 5-game current winning streak and looking like things are really on the up and up, unfortunately lost 2 games they shouldn't have lost in the last 2 days. So, but here they are. They're 15-26. I'm pretty sure, let me look at the standings. I'm pretty sure that makes them last in the National League at this point. As I look, that is correct. Overall, they aren't the worst team in baseball. They, the Tigers and Twins and the AL Central have 13 and 14 wins to the Rockies 15. So, it's been a rough ride. And I think most people looking at this roster and where they were headed knew it was going to be that way. But here was a situation where they should have probably won a couple games and they didn't, so that hurts. They're 13-12 at home. They've played 25 games at home and only 16 on the road, and they're 2-14 on the road. They head out real quick for a 3-game set on the road to start this week before coming back for 3. But when you look at their road record and you look overall, like, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be likely a long year for the Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, they lost. I mean, I'm looking back. I think I see 4 or 5. I think I see 5 games where they've lost by 1 run, I believe. Which,
Ooh, I would guess it's higher than that.
I might be missing a couple here. I think 5, maybe 6, 1. Either way, it's 1, 2, 3. It's something like that. It's something in that range. But if you take that, nonetheless, let's just say it's 5, and you swap this back 5 games. You're looking at almost a 500 team potentially. So I mean, that's really good, regardless of what you currently think. Man, the Rockies are just awful. I mean, they're those 5 losses away for potentially being one of those teams that could be hanging around in the division a little bit more substantially. So who knows? I mean, a lot can change, and if they're able to turn around those close games and start putting together some quality wins there, I think they should be in good shape. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's what we got here for the Rockies. Hopefully they can have a big week this week coming up. Looks like they have a set against they're at San Diego, so that's going to be a tough one here. We have Gray, Gomber, and Gonzalez all on the mound for the Rockies in that series. Then you have a winnable series against Arizona to wrap up the latter end of the week. So, and that's going to be at home at Coors Field. So that'll be a solid one there, hopefully. So if you're able to get maybe one if you get 1 game from San Diego, because they're a really good team, then you take 2 of 3 or 3 of 3 from Arizona, have a nice 4 of 6 in the next 6.
Yeah.
I mean, I would take that all day, every day, and then you're right back in there. So we'll see what the Rockies can do here coming up this week. But also, one other note I want to just touch on real quick. I think as far as, we were talking about on the last stream about attendance for the playoffs. Speaking of NHL, NBA, the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche announced they will allow up to 7,750 fans at Ball Arena for the upcoming playoff games. The recent limit was 4,050, and the new total will equal 42.3% of the fan capacity for hockey games. So they're going to be being able to put together, a little bit bigger crowd than what they've been used to. So hopefully that gives a little bit more to the home fields or home court, home ice advantage.
I think that's a crap number. I think it should be way higher than that. But yeah, no, it definitely helps to increase it. So hopefully it can be loud with that 7750, I think you said, or whatever that was. The CDC did come out this week and say, like, vaccinated people can just not wear a mask. So I know, working for the Rockies, we're headed to 70% capacity, so 35,000 starting June 1st, and then hopefully 100%. It's certainly by July at that point. So I know it's indoors, and indoors is different than outdoors and this and that, but I don't know. You say it with excitement, I say it with, like, they should just have more fans in there. Like, it's a silly number to me. Like, what are we doing? Everyone says trust the science, and when the science says, hey, you're good, they're like, we're gonna hold off.
It's interesting, man. Like, I was out and about today, and I went to a couple places that I didn't need my mask. I'm fully vaccinated. I'm good to go. I walked in, no mask, and it was refreshing. We went to Alabama. There was no mask down there. Came back here. There's still some mask stuff going on, but now it's all back to starting to feeling normal, hopefully. So hopefully it keeps going in this direction, because that feels really nice to not have to, like, remember to put on your mask when you go places. But Hey, we're getting closer and closer. I think as we get into the playoffs, maybe in the next round by round, they start allowing more and more people. So, I mean, that a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to get to these series, especially in hockey and NBA. So, who knows? Maybe the next couple rounds that changes. But that's where we're at with that. So, hope everyone had a fantastic Sunday with us. We had I mean, we didn't even really get to as much of the Mile High Spotlight as we would have liked. But, I mean, we covered a lot of it in the previous segment. So, man, it was just a loaded show. And that's what happens when you get into the NBA, NHL playoffs. You have NFL coming around the corner here soon. We had our special on Wednesday with all the roster, the schedule release. So, man, it's a fun time of year. It's only getting better. So, we will be back here. I will be back here on Wednesday coming up here. And we will be doing a solo show. So make sure you guys come and keep me company. You know, every time I do a solo show, you know, it's always, I love doing solo shows. It's great. You know, not that I don't love doing duo shows, but I love the solo shows, a ton. So just keep me company, have some chat with me, and we'll make sure that you guys take them good care of. Talk some NBA, talk some NHL, talk some top stories, as always, and we'll make sure that we get you through the latter end of your week. So, thank you guys so much. If you're here and you're watching, make sure you hit that follow button. We're here live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So we want to make sure all of our followers, get all those notifications every time we go live so that you know exactly when to pop on and say hey. So thank you so much. Scotty, anything you want to leave everyone with?
Just love you guys. Sorry I might miss out on that Wednesday show, but join Chris. He does a great job solo. He's had to do it before because I'm a slacker at times, and he pulls it together and does a good job. So join him. Give him some comments in the chat. Help him out a little bit. Feed him a little content, but he'll have a lot to go with, and he'll be entertaining for sure. So
Absolutely.
love you guys. For sure, I'll see you next Sunday if I don't see you Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for everyone who participated today. SR Knicks, Devin Chat, Mayday for popping in, all you guys for chatting us up. Thank you guys so much, all our previous followers. Hey, we're almost to 50. We're almost to 50 followers on Twitch. I don't even know where we're at on Facebook. I mean, we're almost there. If you're here and you're, like I said, hit that follow button. It's free and it means a lot to us. And I love to announce those names every time they pop up on the screen. That's even more fun for me. So hit the follow button and we'll make sure you're recognized. We have all the little, if you hit our about button, you can see your name there in our profile. So yeah, we'd love to see you guys. But we will see you back in the lab here on Wednesday. Love you guys. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Have a great start to your week. And we will see you then. Thanks, guys.